Welcome to Saturday's Warrior. And with me, as always, I've got Adam. As we approach week 8, we're going to make our picks and predictions while we also take a look back and see how we did with week 7. And we're also going to get into a little bit of a review on BYU's game last weekend against TCU. And so, but before we do any of that and jump into that, I do want to take a look and let's update where we are at with our picks as of this week. How are you feeling about your picks this last week?
Oh, mixed bag. I pulled off a couple upsets that I was happy about, but it's just turmoil in the season, which is really fun to watch and really impossible to predict.
So, Big 12 kept us on our toes. This was, sorry, I should say, kept me on my toes. A lot of tough picks in this one, and very unpredictable, and was pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah, yeah, it was fun. We already reviewed the West Virginia Houston game, which was awesome. Oklahoma State pulling, I guess, a mild upset. Or Oklahoma State's awesome. We'll see. Maybe they're playing for the championship game come the end of the season. Um, they're looking good. TCU stomped us obviously, and Kansas State coming away with an unconventional style to win that game against Texas Tech.
Yeah. Certainly. I mean, and that's what people love about the Big 12. It's not so good for getting, a team into the playoffs or even ranked teams when we're all beating each other up. But man, it makes each weekend, each matchup exciting to watch.
Yeah.
As far as the other matchups go, we have some. We had also some unpredictability, but I think for the most part we were in lockstep. The only places where we were really differed was in the Oregon State UCLA game, where finally I picked one up to
No, you
soften the blow a
you
little.
you got that one. You got that one. Yeah, UCLA can't get it done on defense. It feels like they're a year or two away. They've got that young quarterback. They'll get there, but Oregon State, I picked against them a couple times, and they keep coming through. That's a good football team there.
I was out on UCLA after just their performance against Utah, and then let's see. I don't think there were major surprises. The Washington Oregon, that was a great game. I mean,
Yeah,
again,
that was everything it was billed to be. I mean, really, really good game.
and if we're lucky, we end up getting a rematch in the Pac-12 championship. You'd like to see one of the teams that's going to the Big 12 make it
Hmm.
there, but I mean, I think that would be awesome to see as a rematch. Just as a fan of,
Can they rematch with their division setup? Can they rematch in the
because they
championship?
got rid of the divisions.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They probably will rematch then. That'll be a good game.
But my thing is, so if Oregon wins that one, then you say, well, and they both win out. Other than that, then you say, well, Oregon won the championship, but just because they won at the end versus this one in the middle of the season, I mean,
Yeah.
what if that one goes to overtime, so it's even closer?
I
So
know. I know. That's we'll leave that to the committee, I guess.
and then I was surprised at Notre Dame. Not that I had tons of faith in USC, but I also didn't have that much faith in Notre Dame. But
Yeah.
they really
Yeah.
took it to them.
Well, the way they won was really impressive, and SC has got some serious questions to answer.
Yeah, and then Mizzou and UK. I think that one was kind of a toss up. We both, it was hard to pick that one. So, way to go, Mizzou. That loss for K-State is starting to look not so bad.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Mizzou's legit.
And I just realized I didn't do the slide updating our overall selection, but I think it's safe to say that um, you increased your lead over me
Took a
again.
took a slight leg up. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see how this next week goes.
So we'll update that next week again. But our overall, I think, percentage went down as well. So anyway, fair enough. So now we're at, and I probably should open up here. We'll get to our picks. So if you're not interested in reliving this game from last week, then skip ahead a few minutes. But man, what the heck happened? I mean, I know you picked TCU, and I was tempted to, but I got caught up in after the bye week and thinking, okay,
Yeah.
we can tune some things up. We're not that far away from really putting it together. And TCU's kind of spiraling, but man, it did not look like that at all.
Yeah, first, I mean, props to TCU for putting together a great game. I hope they figured it out. We certainly made their backup look like a Heisman candidate. We'll see how he does throughout the rest of the season. Regardless of how our defense played, that guy can sling it, man. He's got a cannon, and he made some tough throws. We gave him some easy throws, but he's not afraid to put it in there. I know he threw some interceptions, but man, he was really impressive to watch. Um, I think the offensive line is the story of this game. This was really going to be the turning point. We got a little momentum in the run game against Cincinnati. Could we sustain that? Were we going to really make progress throughout the season there? And the answer is no. I was afraid after the Arkansas Kansas time period that our run game was just that's it. If you're that bad against Kansas, your run game's not something you're going to fix mid-season. I was hoping I was wrong, and this was the game I was kind of looking to say, well, maybe we got some life, maybe we can make some progress, and we don't. We don't have a run game. I don't think I'm not despairing on the rest of the season, but boy, we've got some really, really good teams the second half of the season. And I think you see in the Big 12, home field advantage means a lot. Teams are pulling upsets unexpectedly. That's kind of the nature of it. Teams have off nights, so I don't think I'm off the sitting here saying we're not going to end with a winning record. We're not going to go bowling, but the outlook certainly looks more bleak. It feels like an uphill climb to get to bowl eligibility instead of us running towards it, because to me, the serious questions coming out of this game are the run game, which I think will be what it is for the rest of the season. I don't think we'll improve much. And then the safeties. TCU knew how to attack the safeties, and we're on our fourth string, and our starter for the year is benched. Just some disasters happening at safety, and we kind of cobbled together the first half of the year and got by with it. And TCU exposed that. I look for other teams to do the same against us.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of things. And number one, it's not that we lost. Like, I was prepared for it to be, a good game, and that, we very well could lose this game. I anticipated a loss here coming into the season, so it wouldn't have been the worst thing. It's the way we lost. And again, in not seeing any improvement, not seeing any creativity, not seeing anything different. And it gives me shades of last year, more focused on the defense because there were so many injuries on our offense last year. But even then, I felt like we were able to have some explosive moments. And now it's just, again, I'm just baffled at why, if some of these things aren't happening, what are we not doing? I mean, they've switched around the O line, which is maybe the easy place to point fingers because they have had some issues. But even when Keaton Slovis goes, he's not rushed at all. Sometimes he has all day in that pocket, and then he still ends up throwing away. Maybe he's got no outlet, no room to run with it, but he's clean in the pocket and he just throws it away. And which means our guys aren't getting separation. And I feel like we had a lot of talent with our receivers. So that's baffling. I don't know if it's scheme. I really cannot figure it out. I don't know. I haven't heard a good explanation from anybody. And obviously from the football program, if they do have an idea, they're not going to tell us. And so, but this game to me felt more like, so I was on the airplane. I caught a bit of the first quarter, and I was traveling. I missed a lot of it, and then by the time I got home, it wasn't worth turning on at the moment. It was late enough in the game that I thought I'll go back and watch the highlights. And so I didn't watch a lot of this real time, but going back and what I saw is it just felt like the offense was flat and the defense struggled, but they didn't start out struggling. I mean, they were holding it strong, but when they're on the field, that you have quick 3 and outs over and over and over again, and the defense is on repeatedly. It just felt like, maybe an effort thing. But then even our special teams, I mean, the punt got tipped once, or if not twice. And that's been, one of our strongest areas on the field is been punting and getting short field position. And so if we can't even do that, I just don't know if it was just a lack of focus, effort, I have no idea what's going on. I mean, is this coaching? What's at the root of this?
Well, if you look back over the past, really all of Satake's tenure, I don't know what the cause of this is, but every year we have at least a game, if not two, where we come out flat. I mean, I'm thinking of USF in 2019 and Coastal Carolina in 2020. There's just games where we just come out flat, and it's inexplicable. And in the past, that happened against bad or lesser teams, and sometimes you'd win, sometimes you'd lose a close one. Now we're playing Big 12 competition, and when we have that game, this is what happens. Is 44-11, and so you're playing against tough teams, big athletes every week. And to me, that this is what that game felt like. We just came out, and there was just no fight, no life from the beginning, and it's hard to put your finger on it. And I think the players would say the same thing. If you knew why you come out flat, you'd prevent it. But it certainly happens. BYU is not the only team this happens to, um, but it seems consistent where you get a game or two like that every year, and this was certainly one of those.
So that's my negative side and my pessimism coming out. On the bright side, being 4-2 is still ahead of, or at least on target of, where a lot of people hoped we would be at this point in the season. I just think the frustration is just going back to how we lost, but also not seeing improvement in these areas over the course of the season. And now it's just getting tougher because you get banged up a little bit. You lose Bywater, you lose more depth in the secondary. And so that's frustrating. But regardless, the defense still seems to be, they're not world beaters, but they're out there holding their own, but they can only do it for so long. And
they're better than last year.
Yeah.
Jay Hill's going to build a program there. We're going to have a pretty stout defense here in 2 or 3 years, and he just needs to get his recruits in there. It's fun to see the progress year over year. Super happy with the defense, despite injuries in the secondary. They're good, and now you do bring in someone like Harrison Taggart, who's a great backup to Bywater. So yeah, it's killer to lose Bywater, but for the first time in a long time, you look at it and you say, well, we lost a key piece of the defense, but we got a 4-star freshman coming in who's playing, out of his mind, and that's awesome. That's I think a harbinger of things to come for the Cougars. I have to add one last note on this game, which is a total tangent, but I love tempo offenses, and I hadn't seen one in a while. And watching, as frustrating as it was to watch TCU move the ball on us, man, it is so nice to not watch a team huddle and not watch a bunch of audibles and hear the color commentary trying to fill dead airspace, and you just watch football. They just come up, they snap the ball, you run the play, they get up there, they snap the ball, they run the play. It is so much fun to watch. I wish that was still more of a trend in college football. BYU did it for years under the Anaya offenses, and it was fun to watch. And I missed that a little bit. Having so much football and watching so many plays, especially right now this year, it feels like our tempo is pretty slow. We run a few number of plays. You just don't get to see as much offense.
Yeah, and I think part of that's because we don't have a lot of offense going that, you want to slow the clock down a little bit. And that's probably part of that. But okay, so that is what it is. I have a couple thoughts, but we'll save those for our pick. So now we've got BYU playing Texas Tech this week. This really feels like a game that BYU, if they want to become bowl eligible, they really need, because Texas Tech, it's at home. It is an evening game, but also, they're not who we thought they were going to be before the season. And some of these other teams, like Iowa State, like Oklahoma State, who struggled in the beginning of the season, really seem to have turned it on as of late. And so those games that looked like, okay, we could pick up maybe a couple more wins, are all of a sudden a lot more difficult. So this really feels like BYU needs to bounce back. And so how do they do that? And can they do it?
Yeah, they can do it. And I think historically, again, you've seen them bounce back after a down game and come back and play with fight. You mentioned all those elements. It's at home. It's homecoming. And this is a must win for BYU season, because you look at the rest of the schedule and you're going to have to upset somebody to get to bowl eligibility. And I think they can do that. You look out at the rest of the schedule after this, and can you pick up one more win? Yeah. Yeah, you can. You can pick up one more win out of that. It's tough sledding, and I don't know that you're favored in any game the rest of the year, but I think they could pull an upset to get to bowl eligibility. I really do. But if they don't get this one, I don't know that you can get two upsets the rest of the year and get to bowl eligibility. So for me, this is a must win for the Cougars. You're playing against Texas Tech, who's playing a third string QB, which obviously means nothing because last week we got toasted on the second stringer. So Texas Tech is going to have somebody ready to sling it. And I hate it for the reasons we talked about last week, playing a second string QB. You don't have the film, you don't have the preparation. It's an offense that has been struggling at times, and so they get kind of a fresh start with a new QB. And I don't, for those reasons, I don't like us winning this game. I am going to pick the Cougars because for a couple reasons. One, it's really just a pick with my heart because I want us to win this game and I want us to have a good season, and we need it. Two, it's at home under the lights, and we play differently. And three, there's a chip on the shoulder, and I think BYU plays really tough. It's going to be a close one. I don't see us blowing out Texas Tech by any means. It's another team where if we're going to have success, it's going to be on the ground, so that bodes poorly for us. There's a lot of indicators that just don't play in our favor. I'm really going with the home field advantage, the night game hype with homecoming, and that's about all that's in our favor right now, and that's been enough for some teams in the Big 12 to pull some unexpected wins, and I'm hoping we get a fall in that category.
Yeah, and I think BYU and Texas Tech are on similar tiers here right now. And you look at all the stats, they're pretty similar across the board, except for one key area. And I think they're going to be able to take a similar approach that TCU did and just say, like we can't. Well, one, their rush defense isn't that solid anyway, but their secondary has been pretty good. But they can say, you know what, you can't run it on us. We can't really stop the run, but we can focus on the pass and keep you from being successful there. And so that part worries me. And yeah, you have a third string quarterback. Like you said, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. But it also, when you're down in the depth chart and, we don't have any film, but he also doesn't have a ton of experience. So, but, BYU going back to last year, we had, a knack for letting opposing quarterbacks have the best game of the season, against us. So
we did, and I feel like we stopped that trend, which is really the most frustrating part of the TCU game. Is the backup comes in and just plays lights out, and he may be that good, but it just brought up shades of last year where every quarterback did that to us.
Yeah, so I do think we'll have a better showing this week for sure. It is better environment and circumstance all the way. I just can't allow myself to get my hopes up again. I'm trying to reverse jinx BYU. I'm picking Texas Tech because I feel like whenever I pick BYU, it's not so good. So that is my logic after a lot of that analysis. But I do think that being similar teams, but the matching up, I think that matchup in the secondary are kind of depleted secondary, and versus theirs is going to be able to slow us down, and our receivers haven't shown that they can get open against other teams. So for that reason, I'm picking Texas Tech. Okay, that's the all right. So Oklahoma, UCF.
Yeah, this one seems like a no-brainer. Again, I think a team is going to get to Oklahoma this year. It's going to be an unexpected win. It could be UCF. I feel like they've got the talent to do it. They just haven't been able to put it together. I think it's more likely West Virginia or someone like that will come in and get Oklahoma's number. But so I'm going to go with the Sooners in this one because I haven't seen anything from UCF lately that makes me think they can win this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. And some of these teams, there is going to be a shocker somewhere. And UCF seemed like a team that would be primed to pull off one of those big upsets. But yeah, it doesn't seem like they've really done it. They've really shown that they're going to be able to pull off something like that this year. So
they've been withering as the season goes on. That's you want to see some fight in them, and it just hasn't been there.
Yeah, they've definitely trended down, it's crazy. So maybe the bye week did them well, and they'll be able to come out and prove us wrong. But how about Baylor and at Cincinnati?
Oh, this is a coin flip. I don't think Cincinnati's favored this heavily in my mind. I know FPI gives them a strong chance to win because Baylor's just been not great, but Cincinnati has had their struggles too. I'm going with Cincinnati because they're at home for no other reason than home field advantage. If this was at Baylor, I'd pick Baylor. Because I think both of these teams have their struggles. Maybe Baylor has more of their struggles, but they have more potential, more explosiveness, just like they did against UCF. They can do it. But it feels like Cincinnati has more of the pieces in play, and they're going to be at home. And so I look for Cincy to take this one.
Yeah, I'm also going with Cincy. I agree that it seems like the FBI should be a bit closer than that. I think, to your point, on a neutral field, I still think I'm taking Cincy. Their defense isn't, lights out, but it is a solid defense, and Baylor's offense has really struggled. And sorry to the Barrington boys, but that O line just has not, that done much. It seems to, whatever they took whenever they left, it seemed to have affected BYU and Baylor.
Yeah,
Year,
yeah,
but
a lose on that one.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm also going with Cincy on this one. This is having said that, even though they're both like at the bottom of the Big 12, I could still see this being a very entertaining game. And that's another thing I
Yes,
love about the conference is, any of these games could prove to be really good.
I agree. Boy,
Two teams that have surprised us in different ways this season, but
yeah, in a lot of different ways. And this one is tough. If it were I feel like OSU is unbeatable in Bedlam. I mean, unless you're South Alabama, they're just not going to lose there this year. It's crazy the games they've been able to put on. So I like the way Oklahoma State is trending. And West Virginia is going to have a lot of fight in them because they lost that heartbreaker to Houston when they shouldn't have lost. But I'm going to go with Oklahoma State in this one on the road because I feel like Mike Gundy has got it figured out. And if you look at Oklahoma State, they had two horrendous games. And outside of that, they've been pretty good. Beginning of the season, they were figuring that offense with three quarterbacks, and they just had some growing pains. But boy, they got a mean running back. They've got that offense is just clicking. The defense is making stops in key moments. And I feel like West Virginia is going to try and stifle their offense and run them to death. And I don't think that's going to get the job done against Oklahoma State anymore. I feel like that offense is clicking, and they're going to go into Morgantown and they're going to get the victory.
yeah, I went back on and forth on this one a lot, and you make some really good points about Oklahoma State. I do think when you look at West Virginia that they've also been able to do it through the air, not as much as you'd like to see, but that loss against Houston, there was an interception in the end zone that ends up that ends up flipping 14-point right there. And then and we know that their defense has really been stifling for the most part on teams with otherwise very good offenses. And it is in Morgantown. I don't know. Either way, this week we're going to see either that Oklahoma State really has figured it out, or West Virginia, that they have some real mettle that they can come back and say, we had a surprise loss. Maybe we were buying into the hype too much. We came back and, we had a couple extra days rest. We put things together and we're going to come out here refocused and grind it out against Oklahoma State. And I could see it going either way. Oklahoma State has had two really big wins. I wonder if maybe they're now going to start buying into their own hype. They got to go all the way to Morgantown. I like West Virginia in this one a little bit, but I don't feel great about the pick.
It should be a good one. West Virginia had those injuries on defense, which really could have been the key reason why Houston was able to move that ball, because those were really, I mean, those were star players that were injured. So it'll be interesting to see if they can rally around and solidify that defense. But to me, this is one of the most anticipated games in the conference this year. Two teams in a unique moment in their season.
Yeah, I don't feel great about it. I think, and if Oklahoma State wins this game, I think they show that they are for real in the conference, that they really did flip a switch, which will be crazy. But all right, this is not the. Oh, are they? What what page is this? I think they're on bye week this week, aren't they? So
Iowa State.
yeah, I did not mean to have that tab open. Threw me off. All right. So we got Longhorns at Houston.
Well, now Houston's a dangerous place to play after that West Virginia game. So Texas got to watch out. But yeah, can't pick against the Longhorns in this one. We'll see how they come out after their bye week, really focused on the next half of their season. But I anticipate that they come in focused. Houston's going to have a bit of a letdown anyway after a very dramatic and emotional victory against West Virginia. But whether they have a letdown or not, they're not going to be able to do it against the Longhorns.
Yeah, Longhorns have been stewing over a bye week of that loss at the Red River rivalry, and Houston. I predicted before the season I didn't think they would be this as bad as they were, but I thought that they would have a surprise victory at some point throughout the season. I may have even picked them to beat Texas. I can't remember, but it ended up being West Virginia, which I did not expect that to be a surprise win. But it was an emotional game for at least Holgerson. It was at home. It was a Thursday night, and you had a team that maybe was buying too much into their hype that we know isn't necessarily as talented on paper. So that one really kind of, I'm surprised, nobody, or at least we didn't at least pick up on that a little bit because that seemed ripe for a potential upset. But yeah, I think Texas is going to be way too much for Houston to handle. The Purple Bowl, this should be a good game. So are we going to see, this is where we're going to find out if TCU now is for real and if their quarterback really is as good as he was against BYU, or was that just, BYU, pulling another BYU. And then we're going to see what Kansas State does with their quarterback situation as well.
Yeah, I might come away from this one chanting Hoover for Heisman if he comes in and throws for another 500 on K-State. This is such a tough game to pick because TCU obviously turned a corner. I think TCU has better athletes than almost anyone else in the conference outside of Oklahoma and Texas. It's a talent-laden team that underperformed big time, and we unfortunately got the brunt of their awakening. And I really do think TCU is legitimate. I think they're going to come in here, and they're going to really take it to Kansas State. I had my pick locked in against Kansas State until I read closer into their game against Texas Tech. I didn't watch that game. But reading through their unconventional style with their backup quarterback scoring 5 TDs, does that tell me they're versatile, or does that tell me that Will Howard, who was supposed to be awesome, is not awesome, and they need a backup to get through? I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. I'm going K-State because they're at home, but I feel worse. The worst about this pick of any pick I'm making this week. Because I just watched with my own eyes how potent that TCU team can be. The Kansas State defense is going to be a whole lot more stout than we were. And maybe they'll just give Hoover fits and he'll look like a freshman QB. I don't think so. I think TCU is going to score a lot of points, so I think they're going to keep it close. But Kansas State is creative, and I don't know whether they're going to run it all over him or Howard's going to get mad that he lost his job for a half and come out and throw for 400 yards. But because K-State's at home and it's just a crazy game, I'm going with K-State.
Yeah, it is interesting with Will Howard, and it'll be interesting to see how much we see of him if they go back and forth or how they handle that. But it also, in terms of TCU, you have Chandler Morris. I mean, what is this? The TCU plays better without him 2 years in a row when he goes down. And how
That's
does he
true.
keep the starting job?
What does that tell you about Chandler Morris?
Well, what is he doing in practice? I mean, maybe he has, more of a skill set. I hear that he's maybe not the most likable guy. So is it the team rallying around these other
Could
quarterbacks
be.
or what? I don't know. I wish BYU had that because everyone seems to love Keaton, but he's, I wish that translated into better play for BYU. And I think he's a great fit there, but not to make this about BYU. So I'm with you. This is a tough one. I think this really could go either way. I don't know what to make of it. And I kind of was with you. I picked Kansas State a large part because they are at home. I also think TCU is going to be coming off of that high a little bit. And now there's footage on Hoover, and Kansas State has a little bit more, I think, I'm going to call it versatility with that two quarterback system. And I think that's going to be a little bit harder for them. So we'll see. I would not be shocked either if TCU came out and won that, because Kansas State seems to have been a little bit inconsistent this year.
For sure. For sure.
All right. So let's try to move quickly here through the top 25 picks. This matchup is kind of what Washington and Oregon was this last week. Two teams vying for a playoff and national championship. The two defensive-minded teams. I'm guessing potentially very low scoring. What do you expect to see out of this?
Penn, period. I do not see Ohio State.
Just a second. So say that again.
Oh.
Penn what?
Penn State, period.
Okay.
Ohio State, I think, is a pretender, and this is gonna prove that. I may be eating my words big time because it's hard to call Ohio State a pretender after what they put on the field year after year. But I just feel like this year they're not where they were before. I think they're living on past success for their current ranking, and Penn State is legitimate this year. They're going to expose them, even at the shoe. They're going to come away with the victory.
Yeah, the game's in. So I'm guessing it's going to be low scoring, maybe similar to what we saw with the Ohio State Notre Dame game, and it really could come down to a field goal or something. And Penn State's defense has been suffocating, but they haven't really played someone like Ohio State yet, who it's going to be, like you said, at the Horseshoe. They have, even though they're similar teams in many ways, I think Ohio State has more explosive athletes, that potential for those bigger plays. And in a low-scoring game, that probably gives them a little bit of an edge, especially when playing at home. I think a difference is they don't have the elite quarterback that they've had of past years. And so they may or may not be able to take advantage of that as much. But also Penn State has not been able to get those, really push it downfield. And against an Ohio State defense like this, are they really going to be able to, just kind of move the ball, a few yards at a time down the field consistently enough to get enough points? I don't know. Having said all that, in a game of two top 10, in a top 10 matchup, there's no way I'm going to pick Ohio State. So I'm just going to go with Penn State regardless. So I'm with you on that one. So, all right. Washington State at Oregon.
Yeah, poor Washington State is all I can say. Oregon's coming out with a head of steam after that loss, and they're going to take it out on Washington State. Oregon by 80. I mean, it's Oregon's going to win big.
Yeah, I had hopes for Washington State. Again, I wanted to see them and Oregon State, who are getting left behind, have stronger seasons. And it's just tough that they're having two of the better seasons that they've had in a while, both those teams. But it happens to coincide when almost the rest of the league is also having some of their better seasons in a long time. Everyone except for maybe Utah, and even then, Utah is still really good, even as struggled on offense as their team has done. But anyway, so yeah, I'm with you. I think after that game last week, Oregon's going to come out with something to prove, and so Washington State is going to have their hands full. All right, Volunteers, Crimson Tide. What do you think?
Man, this one's so hard. I've picked against Alabama so many times this year, and it's never gone well, except when I picked Texas over them. So Tennessee's the next team in orange to come into Tuscaloosa, so we're going to say Tennessee's going to pull it out. To me, it's a coin flip. I mean, Alabama looked not good against Arkansas. I really thought Arkansas was going to be able to pull that out. They couldn't. So Alabama, again, is just they're just not where they've been in the past, and that's not to say they're not an incredibly dominant team because they still are. Tennessee doesn't have great victories. You kind of saw that Florida loss coming a mile away. with a desperate Florida team, but that's the only mark on their record. They haven't really beat anybody great. They're relying on a ground game and a defense instead of an explosive offense like they had last year when they were so exciting with Hendon Hooker. Um, but I'm going to say because Alabama's been kind of playing with fire and have almost dropped a couple, I think this is going to be the one that does it. Tennessee's going to win.
I would not be surprised at all, but I'm just not picking against Nick Saban, especially at home right now. But yeah, I mean, both teams seem to be a little bit flat, and this is not the most confident I've ever been in picking picking an Alabama team to win, and Tennessee certainly has the tools to do it. But yeah, I mean, their only real blemish is that Florida game, which I think is somewhat excusable. So I could see Tennessee doing it. I'd love to see it, but I'm at this point, I'm just going with the odds here, going with Saban. So
Safe odds.
All right, so we got some action here with Toledo and Miami of Ohio, who are both surprisingly 6-1, and Miami of Ohio beat Cincy, a Big 12 team, earlier in the season. So, what do you make of this matchup?
Yeah, Miami of Ohio looks legit because of that win against Cincy. However, Cincy has struggled this year to put a real offense together, and their defense is bent at key moments. So I don't know how good Cincy truly is, and I think it was on Miami of Ohio has looked good outside of that, but I'm still going to go with Toledo. I feel like Toledo has had a little bit more programmatic success over the past 4 or 5 years, and because of that, there's a little bit more in the culture. And for a team that needs to dig deep on the road and win a big game, I'm going to go with Toledo.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. I can't lie and say I've watched these teams and I know a lot about them. But from what I've seen and what I understand is that Toledo still has that the offense, the potential to put up a lot of points, and in the MAC that seems to be enough to get it done oftentimes. And they played has nothing to do with anything but that one of that most exciting games against BYU. That was high flying. So I don't know. Should be a good one though. And this one's actually not middle of the week. It's on Saturday. So
Yeah.
should be a good game, and could potentially, the winner could potentially end up ranked, or at least, vying for a potential, spot to represent the group of five in the New Year's Six Bowl. So,
Yeah.
There's a lot on the line there. All right. Here's a good one. Duke at Florida State. Is Florida State for real?
So I don't think Florida State is for real. I think they're back. I think they made huge progress. I think they're a top 10 team. I think they're very, very good. Absolutely. But they haven't been tested. They beat LSU, which was a huge victory. And I don't want to discount that because it was week one, but you're coming out of the gates, fresh out of training camp, and you just don't know what product you're going to put on the field. So it's still a win, but it means a little bit less in my eyes. Duke is battle tested. Going the rounds with Notre Dame. I'm going to go with Duke on the road in a big upset against Florida State because I don't think Florida State has quite enough to make it back to the playoff. They're not back in terms of a top 5 national championship team, but they're very, very good. I think Duke is going to come in the upset mainly because of lessons learned from their loss. There's just something about a team that has one loss, a tough loss, that's as good as Duke is. They're battle tested, and Florida State to me is not, because they, outside of that LSU game, they really haven't played a lot of competition this year.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Duke is a solid team, and it's not just coaching. Like, I think there is some talent on that team. And this game does seem to have upset written all over it. Florida State's coming off a big win over, Syracuse. They've had, I think they were tested in terms of, you mentioned LSU. That was the beginning of the season. That showed, they came out, played tough. They won in overtime against Clemson. Now, Clemson's not who they used to be, but that's still, pulling that out and winning that game. But I'm also with you that I don't think Florida State is for real, but I think they could still end up in the playoff because because I could see them going undefeated through the season. But the ACC isn't all that difficult, whereas like the Big 12 may not have a representative because we've all beaten each other up so much. And so anyway, so I could still see them being in the playoff. I think this could be a potential upset, but I think I like Florida State a little bit more in this one. Unfortunately, I don't love picking Florida State to win, but okay. And here's another one with two teams I usually like to pick against, in Utah at USC. This has been a little bit of a fun rivalry, always been exciting games at the very least between these two teams. And it's going to be the last time for a couple years until they're back in the Big Ten, from what Whittingham says. So,
yeah. This should be a good game. And it's true, Utah plays USC tough historically. They do a great job against them. Had USC beat Notre Dame, I would have felt like this had some upset potential for Utah. I don't. I think USC's licking their wounds. They're going to come out angry, particularly USC's offense, which is where I think this game lies. If USC's offense outduels the Utah defense and hangs 35 plus points, that's it. That's the ball game. No matter how bad USC's defense is, and it's porous, Utah's offense is not going to score 20, 25 plus points on them. I just don't see that happening. So I have USC winning this one because I think Caleb Williams wants to come out and show why he's the Heisman Trophy winner, and all the negative talk about him this week after laying an egg at Notre Dame. They're going to come out and they're going to put up some big points against an extremely talented defense, and they'll win this one comfortably.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This definitely seems like it could be a bounce back game for USC, who lost a tough one. They're back at home, and Utah really has no offense. Of course, who knows? Maybe Cam Rising finally shows up to play. Excuse me. No, I don't think that's likely. I do think that they're starting to figure some things out on offense, and I think that USC all year has, at least for times it seems like all their games, maybe not all of them, but even, from the very beginning has, really struggled with on defense. And so it's really, I think all the action is going to be the USC offense versus the Utah defense. And I think that they can do a lot to shut USC down. And I don't feel great about this pick, but I kind of think Utah might pull out a stunner over USC. So I'm going with
That's bold.
The Utes on this one. Yeah, I know. For me, but I think most of my picks this week were pretty safe, and for that to be the one, I don't know, to stake my my picks all on Utah winning seems a little dirty. But anyway, so yeah, a lot of. We're at that point in the season where there's just so many good games. I mean, there's other ones that we didn't even include on here. So lots of good action this week. Hopefully, especially in the Big 12, and we can see BYU have a bounce back week, hopefully on homecoming weekend, night game. But anyway, thanks Adam for joining, and don't forget to like and the video, subscribe to the channel as we keep these coming each week for you. And as always, go Cougs.
Go Cougs. Thanks, Trevor.